Welcome to this crystal cave where we'll be going through a overview of the main astrological themes and energies that could be used in 2025 in an astrological sense, which to me is largely about echoes of the future and the completion of or the almost completion of quite a lot of long astrological cycles. It will be in uh, the year of the snake as well, the wooden snake, if I'm not mistaken. And there's quite a few noticeable sections, but of this year anyway, astrologically. But I want to just do a quick summary, hopefully about 10 minutes. And then after that, go into a kind of PowerPoint with much more details about when these aspects are and which degrees and which all the kind of little things which, you know, might be helpful, hopefully will be useful over the next year. Just to introduce myself a little bit briefly, my name here, astrology name is AstroLee, and I've been a kind of amateur astrologer for about 4 or 5 years, and a long interest in astrology before that. And you can find a website below this video with more information there. Now, as I say, for 2025, it's clearly got different sections through the year. The first section, which by the way, I've heard other mystics talk about these kind of bundles of energy through the year, and it did seem to make sense. Yeah, I would recommend you follow up Anelia Benz's work if you want to find out more about those bundles and how she sees them. But clearly, the first 4 months is there's a lot of retrogrades. Like Mars is in the middle of a kind of long retrograde until the end of February, and won't leave his retrograde shadow for not until May. Venus is going to go into her retrograde shadow as well in late January, and going to be kind of hovering between the new and the old in the final sign of the zodiac, Pisces, and then in the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, just kind of skipping across that kind of boundary, like kind of split between the old kind of light dark paradigm and the new light paradigm. Before, as I say, turning direct in April and kind of really getting going with a new cycle, looking into new adventures in Aries through May and beyond. And even, of course, Mercury is going to be retrograde as well in this period. In March and April, Mercury will also be retrograding across that kind of Pisces, Aries kind of divide. So it's clear to me that the first few months are really about reevaluating our actions and seeing how resonant they are, with all kinds of advice as kind of heavy hitting kind of planets like Pluto, Eris, and Neptune, Uranus, and all these kind of celestial bodies getting on the warrior's case and saying like, why are you doing it like this? Why are you doing like that? Stuff like this. Also, Venus, as I say, is coming towards the end of Pisces and meeting planets like Saturn, who are like, really, who's really forcing Venus to drop the rose-tinted glasses and look at reality. And Neptune is doing quite the opposite, to be honest, but it's looking like, how can we make these dreams real? And then also meeting the North Node. So with Venus retrograde as well is kind of a change of heart, possibly, or even a deeper commitment to things that we're looking to, particularly in a Pisces sense, which would be obviously artistic ventures, mystical endeavors, psychic abilities, guides, enlightenment, these kind of things, which we'll talk about a bit later on in more depth. In the background, we have North Node moving into Pisces in January for until July 2026. Again, emphasizing that we'd really be in our best interest in that phase to focus on moving towards Piscean areas, like away from rules and red tape, away from work for the sake of work, and really focusing on enlightenment, and, artistic kind of progress, creative genius, kinds of mystical endeavors. This is kind of the way to go, through this kind of quite interesting year. It appears that the eclipses in March on that Virgo Pisces kind of area, the first one, is also telling us very much to kind of hang loose, just kind of forget about, the rules, following every single little detail. It's okay to be a bit creative here and there. And there would be we'll have another eclipse, Aries, towards the end of March. And this to me is like the real beginning of the year after the winter, where we're really being told not to initiate anything during the winter. I mean, December to March area. And kind of illuminations will come through these eclipses about uh, things that really is where our heart is, where we feel committed to, which gets even more, it gets even more Aries, even more kind of like that kind of card at the beginning of tarot where you're often a new adventure. They call it the Fool, but really creating new worlds. Where this was the end of March and through April in particular, there's the second phase of the year kind of really gets going, where Neptune moves into Aries. Neptune has a 165-year cycle, and Pisces is the final sign, and Aries is the first sign. So really, this is indicating the end of a gigantic Neptune cycle around the Earth from our perspective. Now, Neptune was only noticed 1846. So this is the first real cycle where Neptune has been visible and we've actually felt it astrologically. So Neptune will make a brief trip into Aries until October, and it's like a kind of trailer. Like these are the kind of like new adventures that might seem worth going for, and we can explore different new dreams to explore. Yeah, it's kind of idealism, like brave activities, uh, new, also things like new medical explorations, a more accurate view of like such things as the viruses I read do not exist at all, and all kinds of things along those lines just becoming like last time Neptune was in Aries, there was the invention of things like antiseptic kind of uh, aids to surgery by Joseph Lister. For it, also it's kind of idealistic kind of battles against slavery, which obviously these days extended dramatically to wage slavery and things like this. Um, New kind of ways of exploring the oceans. Like in the last time Neptune was in Aries, it was like the first ocean liner trips. You can see things like deep sea explorations for tourists and things like this. Also, a new focus on things like the paranormal, so-called paranormal, or the actual normal, you might say. Interesting to say paranormal. That's not quite accurate, is it really? Because it is actually normal. And things in Neptune and Aries, you can see it'd be like yeah, like a new kind of form of masculinity, I would guess, with Aries being that kind of male sign and this and Neptune dream, so a new kind of vision of this away from such things as saviors and such like that to something other kind of forms away from other kind of forms along those lines. Something that is more resonant. Saturn also moves into Aries from May to September and helping Neptune to be a bit more realistic about kind of the aims and goals and dreams to begin to explore. But as I say, this is just a recce. It's kind of a seeing where is the lay of the land, what are the lay of the land, what's the options here, what kind of opportunities can we see? And then after they've gone back, they return in 2026. So in May, there's a first aspect which is really kind of quite powerful, and it really is like the key point to kind of start off endeavors that might kind of change the course of our life, the course of like the route that we're on. And this is when Chiron, the Chiron is represented by a key, so it's like the key to kind of changing from our current reality to the new kind of a current kind of Saturn reality to the Uranus kind of new exciting innovative kind of lifestyle because Chiron is an asteroid that is between Saturn and Uranus from our perspective, at least in the view of the cosmos that we currently have. So Chiron, as I say, meets Eris. Eris is a very disruptive but very authentic force. Chiron and Eris were quite close, I think, last summer, but now they're going to meet three times. The first one is in May, and yeah, this is really a great opportunity to explore new and more authentic healing methods, particularly anything that enables us to or helps us, supports us in being more authentic and therefore more at ease and healthier from that alone. Also, in the other side of the split, this is a period, Chiron conjunct Eris, where there can be some really painful splits in reality on a physical level, with Aries being a very physical sign. And in a light paradigm sense, this would be about uh, ever expanding kind of levels of awakening and around our authentic nature, essentially. Yeah, continuing to drop unhelpful patterns and things like that. And definitely some quite big pioneering kind of new kind of structures being kind of birthed here, which will, help obviously in decades, if not centuries ahead. Up until the 9th of June, Jupiter's in Gemini, continuing to help us network and learn like beginner's mind, kind of Gemini, and it's the twins as well. So really helping to network, as I say, communicate and with education on kind of lower level. But then on the 9th of June, Jupiter moves into Cancer for about 13 months. So this would be a extremely positive in regards to family connections, even forming like second families, new tribes, honoring our kind of roots and where we come from, generating new traditions, resonant uh, for this paradigm. Jupiter, Jupiter in Cancer will help to dramatically expand sanctuaries and safe places, happy places for us. And as the year goes on, Jupiter will interact with Chiron and Eris, squaring them while Jupiter's in Cancer and Chiron and Eris are in late uh, Aries. So our kind of new pioneering adventures, new healing efforts, awakenings of we're experiencing with Chiron and Eris uh, will lead to adjustments in our families, which will lead to a kind of better relations with families. In this case, as they kind of finally see, this is what you've been doing, right? And Cancer has had a pretty hard time, to be honest, for quite a while. We've Pluto has been opposite in the opposite sign, Capricorn, in 2008, and this has been kind of like led to Cancer having to have a lot of ego kind of redevelopment and strengthening to deal with this. And also Mars at the moment is going retrograde and it's going to go into Cancer and it's all reevaluating kind of family connections and the home and things like this. But as soon as Jupiter gets into Cancer in June, this kind of the benefits of all our kind of processing of, let's say, family issues, all that kind of dealing with home related stuff, which we're doing right now in the start of the year when Mars is retrograde, will really bear fruit, particularly towards the end of the year when Jupiter in Cancer is trine Saturn and Neptune are pretty close together at the end of Pisces, which is essentially like a very magical energy for making things happen, and it has the real emotional force. Cancer is a cardinal emotional water sign, so it's very active. She is extremely powerful at making things happen through feelings, starting things off. Starting off families, starting off homes, and so with the help of Saturn in the mystical artist Pisces and Neptune also being there, there's a real strong possibility through the end of the year, particularly October, November, uh, October to December, I mean, with um, manifesting dreams. I mean, it could be like your first home, first child, um, these kind of Cancerian things, like birthing things, um, artistic kind of success, recognition, perhaps. And it's sustainable as well with Saturn involved. It's something that will last. It's not just a temporary thing which you might sometimes get with Jupiter. It's something that will last for quite a while. Now we come on to Uranus moves into Gemini. It Uranus is in Gemini between July and November. So Uranus has been trudging along in Taurus, like where Uranus is not extremely familiar, to be honest, for years now, like 7 or 8 years, helping us become more aware of agriculture through uh, mavericks forces such as Jeremy Clarkson, also helping us be more aware of our connection to Gaia, through such things as the Gaia contract, and generally helping us to be more aware of what we're eating, what's in our bodies, and how all kinds of Taurus elements have been awakened in a way which is kind of extremely unusual because Taurus doesn't like to change, doesn't like to change much at all. Not really, not at all. Conservative forces have seemed to be, the rebels raging against kind of changing things, changing their ways. Now, Uranus moving into Gemini is so much easier, so much easier, and it signals a kind of revolution in ideas and communication, which um, is going to be interesting to see how it shakes up kind of travel networks and helping people to become more aware of um, um, things where we're perhaps not seeing things clearly for what they are. So, like illuminating the folly of electric cars to most people, looking at ways we could get around more easily, looking at with Uranus and Gemini, looking at education and seeing like the benefits of mass take up of more independent kind of forms of education with greater choice. You can see things where people would end up kind of almost choosing their own curriculum for their child much more easily and going to different places, different tutors, studying more online, or also having more kind of contact with people in their local neighborhood, right, and studying together. And it looks like it's going to be a massive kind of shake-up there. Yeah, the dissemination of information by media companies such as like the BBC and CNN, kind of large communication networks, just kind of be abandoned more and more increasingly as people moving towards finding out more things themselves, having more greater range of options of where to find information, and great developments in freedom of speech where it's just not possible to for Uranus to follow the rules really, and particularly in sign so focused on communication as Gemini. It's just it's just not going to happen. It's not going to be stopped. This kind of seems like it's Uranus and Gemini focus very much on like friendly computer interfaces and like AI being used very much in this area as kind of companions, people in like difficult situations or looking like perhaps elderly people. Seems like there's lots of possibilities going to be put forward from that, but it's a matter of being very discerning which communication tools we choose. Have Uranus and Gemini also indicates kind of lightning bolts of changes and developments in such things as virtual worlds, such as Second Life, where I've been involved in with various things on Second Life, such as city Arwen City, and how people kind of network and use that for business purposes. All this seems to be very much focused on over the next several years, next like 7 or 8 years, while Uranus is in Gemini. And of course, Uranus uh, in Gemini is an air sign, and Pluto has moved into Aquarius for good now until 2043. So Pluto is really going to take apart forensically all unhelpful dogmas, huge organizations based on propaganda and delusions in such areas as academia and mass broadcasters. You can see them crumbling with Pluto in Aquarius challenging these fixed thought forms, and also Uranus in Gemini, the maverick kind of Gemini with all whole new kind of interchangeable communication methods. And yeah, it's just be interesting to see how that works out. Because when we move on to this new phase of the year, which is particularly from, I would say, August or September to October, where there's what they call a grand air trine, where there's really Uranus and uh, Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius are doing an awful lot of things to shake up the way we look at things, shake up our communications, shake up our awareness of situations. And then a succession of planets will move into the other air sign, Libra, like Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, which will really help people to communicate these staggering new ideas in a kind of diplomatic way to get acceptance by masses of people, which could really lead to a chain reaction of colossal uh, increase in awareness in those months. Um, as I said, particularly uh, August to October. I mean, this is really really a lot of benefits there. The only thing is there could be too much communication, too much mental activity. So digital detoxes and spending time in nature might help along with all these planets going through air signs. This it seems to me to be uh, it seems to be relevant to mention uh, ways of using sound which perhaps haven't been looked at for a while. These could be healing. I mean, I've heard people talk about new developments in music. This grand air trine would be perfect for that kind of um, endeavor. And also, particularly with Uranus there in Gemini, uh, a focus on individuality and moving away from kind of cookie cutter, kind of copying people or um, such things as influencers not being so kind of relevant. In fact, being people looking very much to create their own style. Experimental outlooks, inventors, people trying to create new devices, free energy or new ways of traveling, more uh, just kind of in different kind of technology, different kind of forms of energy used for these forms of travel. These kind of new ideas, real melting pot there of things um, towards the end of in the middle of that phase of bringing about new ideas in September, towards the end of it. I mean, there's the final eclipses of the year. So the first one on the 7th of September is 15 Pisces. So this is quite a lot about, I would say, releasing belief systems that are no longer uh, of any use to anyone or relevant. I think there'd be more major religious figures being outed as kind of criminals or some way. It's a big thing happened earlier this year in 2024, where the head of the Church of England uh, found to be in a massive scandal around it was pedophilia and things like this, and he had to leave. And I see there'll be much more of this happening. That was just the kind of opening uh, scandal because the eclipses and Pisces and Virgo carry on until 2027. We've just had one so far in 2024. So a lot of these attempts to uh, bring kind of influence through religion and these things, I see them very much disintegrating under these aspects over the next few years. Yeah, the religious element not particularly helpful for any of us, I would say. And then the final eclipse, 21st of September, is 29 Virgo. So this is an interesting eclipse which looks to be, as it is, opposite opposite Saturn and Neptune in late Pisces. Seems which structures in our lives are outdated and dissonant, not something that we wish to carry on in a higher frequency sense. And yeah, towards the end of the year, as I say, um, Saturn and Uranus and Neptune have all gone back into the different signs. Backwards, Saturn come back into Pisces for a little while. Uranus goes back into Taurus for a little while, and Neptune goes back into Pisces. So from say November or so onwards and into 2026, it's just a little bit of a kind of review period. So that's basically my summary, which might be quite a long summary, I don't know, of what's happening in 2025. Now I'm going to go on to the next section where I'm going to look at things in more detail with a PowerPoint. I mean, as I say, if you did enjoy this, you could like, share, subscribe, and I've heard people talk about a little bell to kind of ring. I think it's on YouTube. But without further ado, I'll go on to the PowerPoint and more in-depth look at 2025. So as I say, we have here let's check this is all working. But we have the theme, I would say, echoes of the future, particularly with the middle section of the year where Saturn and Neptune, Chiron and Eris are all in Aries, looking at things that we're wanting to develop through the year ahead. And in fact, for a long time in the future, where Neptune is generally in a sign, could be anything like 13, 15 years or so. And January to May, we're kind of adapting and reviewing activities, checking to see whether our heart is in things. We've had a change of heart, Venus going backwards and forwards, and they're going, well, Venus and Mercury are going back and forward over the Pisces Aries threshold. So from March, I would say March to yeah, May. Well, in May, actually, May. April, so we say April, May. If I can manage to make this work. April, May. There we are. April, May to October. Pioneering life script shifts begun, as I say. And July to October, lightning bolts of ideas and mass awakening intensifies. So first thing I really wanted to look at here, Mars retrograde. As I say, this started quite a while ago. We had since the 6th of December, Mars has been a retrograde until the 23rd of February, and going backwards and forwards between 17 Cancer and 6 Leo. So if you were born, say, between 7th of July, let's say 28th of August, you might experience like Mars going backwards and forwards of your sun, feeling like you got a lot of energy, or feeling like you kind of like things are forcing you to kind of take another look at the way you're doing things. Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at this period as a bit like somebody having to um, go back and go over their plans and re-strategize in preparation for a kind of major expedition, which starts around April, May. So, for example, I went off to do a really difficult teaching diploma like many years ago. And yeah, it was called a Delta. I don't know if you know it in English language teaching world. And there were so many difficult books to read, so many things to remember, that, apparently some people even went mad trying to pass this exam, this course, these modules, for English, teaches English as a foreign language. So I thought after somehow passing the first module, getting the first exam under my belt, module one. For module two, which was the most difficult one that kind of drove people crazy, I took my books and I took some time off work and I went to the mountains. I went to the Himalayas and a place in Nepal called Pokhara, where full of like Tibetan refugees and their descendants. It's an extremely cheap place to stay for like 2 or 3 months, and at the time it was anyway. I think it still is. And yeah, I went through all the Delta books and took all the notes in preparation for actually managing to pass that course in the future. So this seems to me, a very useful way to do this. So as I say, Mars goes backwards and forwards. So between 17 and Cancer and 6 Leo. So he first his first pass was from the 5th of October 2024. He was at 17 degrees Cancer and moved forward until the 6th of December when he went retrograde again, and he's retrograde now. So if you try to think of your activities between the 5th of October and the 6th of December, and which of those you feel that you're having to do again, like currently again in a teaching sense, I'm now um, teaching the same course that I taught in October, but to completely different people. For example, I'm looking at ways to improve it. Um, and then, as I say, Mars will stop going uh, retrograde, go direct on 23rd of February 2025. And then we'll go along this over this ground again until the 2nd of May when he's finally in a new cycle. So Mars, as you can see here, will sextile Uranus 3 times, so there'll be kind of like desire to be free and do different things. This would be in the first one was 24th of October in late Cancer, late Taurus, and then we just move this around, and then we have his second Mars Uranus sextile on the 23rd of January. I'll put all of this in the notes, the main video, by the way, just in case anyone's actually trying to write this down. And then the third pass will be on the 4th of April next year with Mars and Uranus. So we might be kind of looking at where we feel restricted, for example, or where we want to break free and jump like on a motorbike and go off into the distance. Might start looking at the end of October and then look at it again late January and finally come to some kind of plan of action around the 4th of April. Mars will trine Neptune 3 times. First, it's on the 28th of October and the second will be 12th of January, and the third time on the 19th of April. So here we are looking at how we are doing in terms of how are our actions in terms of our dreams and our kind of inner world, our soul. How is our soul and our body kind of feeling here? Are we working as one, or a physical body and us not going together? Um, these are kind of things really worth looking at here. Perhaps we kind of like in my case, I'm kind of writing a novel which kind of keeps coming, other things keep cropping up. Um, so it's kind of seemed important just to kind of clear out a few little things, and other kind of priorities came into play, and then I can get back to this in the new year and focus much more on that novel. You can see Mars has three oppositions to Pluto, which is brutal, absolutely brutal. It might seem like our actions are just being stopped, like powerful forces are just saying, no, not doing that. And the first Mars-Pluto opposition, 3rd of November, late Cancer, late Capricorn. My son's late, the sun is in Cancer, so that kind of was noticeable. And the second one is in a few days on the 3rd of January, and the third one, 27th of April. So this is very much a question of first we get kind of a hint of the powerful forces that we're having to account for in our actions. Like this is things such as governments, supposed authorities, and how are we actually acting in response to that? So we'll get to review our actions in a way that helps us to show how committed we are to making what we want to happen. Mars will also square Uranus, as had his first square Eris, sorry, had his first square with Eris, 22nd of October, second one, 20th of January, fourth one, third one on the like the 4th to the 5th of uh, April. So again, the start of April is a really powerful period for us having taken on board all kinds of information and insight about our actions and how we can act more effectively in terms of what we want to happen and how we're impacting other people, how we're impacted by other people. And by the beginning of April, should really be acting in a much more positive way to kind of working towards our kind of life goals or things we incarnated to achieve. Yeah, we also have Mars square Chiron 3 times. First time 13th of October, second, 3rd of February, third one 26th of March. So this could be kind of uh, painful kind of adjustments in our actions, where we're just having to kind of find a kind of more efficient way of doing what we're doing. Perhaps we've been working too much and we need to kind of adjust and work a bit smarter. Perhaps there's healing actions that are needed, like in terms of detoxification in the physical body. Uh, Such things as this. Being careful not to hurt other people with our actions, of course. Now, Mars will trine the North Node 3 times as well. So it's a big thing, this Mars retrograde. This is in the, let's see, we've got Mars trine the North Node. It was on 23rd of November was the first one. Second one, the 5th of January, again in a few days' time. And third one on the 11th of April. So here we can see that our actions, all our adjustments, and the information that we're getting in terms of um, how we are acting, are we being too aggressive, perhaps? Are we kind of being too dominant? Are we kind of not doing enough? Are we just being too passive? Um, what exactly are we doing and how are we doing it? All this kind of feedback is helping us to act in a much more effective way um, by April. And just to note, Mars will also be out of bounds, actually from yesterday, 30th of December until the 7th of April. So it might seem that we're just like a little bit of a loose cannon. We're just kind of wild, kind of doing whatever it is we wish. So this is also another factor. So the next thing we're looking at here is Venus is, as I say, retrograde, uh, 1st of March, 12th of April. But as I mentioned, this retrograde uh, shadow begins on the 28th of January to the 6th, and it carries on until Venus leaves the retrograde shadow on the 16th of May. So we're really uh, uh, exploring our kind of feelings and delving into the truth of our kind of heart, the the goddess of love, money, um, kind of artistic works here is coming towards the end of Pisces in this period and in the start of Aries. So this is related to the Saturn and Neptune, and I have said and say a bit more later, uh, at the end of Pisces, start of Aries, relating to um, the significant dissolution, if I can pronounce that correct, dissolution of old paradigms, which will really come close to home, close in relationships, it seems here, and in a financial sense. So there's lots of endings of perhaps significant partnerships or also old kind of flames traditionally returning here. Perhaps looking again may be another way of looking at this, old kind of works of art, things that we used to enjoy, films we used to enjoy, TV programs, works of art, and looking at them thinking, yeah, I'm really into that now. Like I imagine at some point in the past there was quite a lot of religious kind of art and music, and then someone like Mozart came along and did something different, and it was a whole new kind of style of, say, classical music at that point. So this is kind of thing we're looking at here, really. It's new kind of forms in those senses coming to the fore. We might even see whole new forms of art under these energies this year. I mean, as I said, I heard about new forms of or more living forms of music coming in, which is would fit this astrology. And this is also about our general kind of dreams as a collective being reimagined. Perhaps we've been deluding ourselves about people we thought would be helpful. Like some people may have thought this about religious leaders, celebrities, uh, artists of all types, and perhaps saying that, yeah, these don't really represent the kind of people we really should emulate in any way. Um, we may look at things such as, I mean, for example, with Mars again, I mean, the idolization of sports players and footballers in particular. I mean, this is something that there could be like a major kind of realization that perhaps these people are not quite as great and not worth quite as much as they seem to be. So, as I say, with Venus retrograde, it's fantastic for recreating our relationship with money, assets, also for mystical dropping of unhelpful energies. Venus will meet Saturn 3 times to help with different kind of emotional commitments. But this Venus conjunct Saturn, 18th of January, 7th of April, and finally on the 24th of April. So this is again a phase in the first 4 months of the year where you're looking at reviewing our uh, things and looking again, in this case, looking at deep emotional commitments, which might be recommitted to or recommitted to in a more resonant fashion, like perhaps people creating new and more resonant wedding vows, for example, or perhaps dropped or altered in some way. And, a greater sense of practicality in terms of these kind of dreamy dreamy views of these commitments. Venus will conjunct the North Node on the 1st of February at 28 degrees Pisces, immediately after Venus meets Neptune for the first time. So this could really be a kind of clear seeing things, seeing things that we want to see, perhaps, or perhaps suddenly seeing things that we haven't seen before. It's very helpful energy for committing to a dream of some kind with Venus conjunct Neptune and the North Node. It's yeah, extremely helpful for that. Like, for example, committing to a new high frequency dream, artistic, mystical, or romantic. Um, this can really help us to gain clarity about the things that we value. Also, there could be whole new things such as new forms of fashion brought in as well in these kind of Venus Pisces Neptune energy. Um, Again, like virtual world, digital art could play a role here, and huge kind of old delusional paradigms, institutions, and groups um, can suddenly uh, be unmasked and seen more clearly at this time, whether for good or ill. Venus also gets help from uh, the lord of the underworld, Pluto, where Venus sextiles Pluto, who's in Aquarius, of course. First time on the 7th of February, second time on the 21st of March, third time 6th of May. And yeah, this is really helpful for the goddess of love to gain clarity, exactly to find out, to see if she's a frequency match for either projects or people or um, artistic forms that she's committed to. Venus and Pluto in this context in particular, but also generally, is helpful for connections with soulmates. And as I say, the scales can really drop from people's eyes. And you can see, like, people who actually, the feelings can be much more visible, and even when they've been kind of denied, for example. So you can see that Venus and Mars being retrograde is indicates it's a pivotal time for relationships. Mars being in Cancer for quite a section of this retrograde. Also indicates looking at kind of family and extended family and people who have been disabled and their health has been dramatically reduced, for example, by certain injections. Really, people can be really having to reorganize their home life to try and look after people who would otherwise wouldn't be able to survive. Another thing, we also have Mercury is conjuncting Neptune in late Pisces at the start, sorry, three times. And this is in first time 2nd of March, second time 29th of March, and third time 17th of April. So it can be extremely difficult to see things clearly with Mercury conjunct Neptune. So it's really a good idea to check the truth of everything that we see. Sun, of course, goes late Pisces and conjunct Neptune on the 17th of March. So this is like the final meeting of the Sun with Neptune in Pisces for this astrological cycle, which is a 165-year cycle. So huge endings here we're seeing in March, April, and then of course we have the Saturn in Pisces as well. So Saturn will meet the North Node on the 21st of April, 26 degrees 51 Pisces, conjunct Neptune. So new commitments have been made with all of these things that we're experiencing with Venus and Neptune, Venus and Mars going retrograde, also Mercury uh, as a retrograde as well around that time. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how how things are in April after all of these things have happened. Really, the as far as I can see, the golden rule with Mars retrograde like this and also Venus retrograde, not to initiate new things until at least April, because things can come out of left field, things, unforeseen setbacks and disruptions, uh, even whole cultures and states have been impacted by this, with Mars going backwards in Cancer, the sign of roots and traditions and such things as that. So essentially, hopefully by the end of this cycle, we'll, our actions and feelings will be in alignment. Also, body and soul will be as one. Now, the focus on Piscean elements, such as enlightenment, universal consciousness, mystical abilities, healing, artistic expression, uh, solitude, dropping old kind of low frequency Piscean elements, such as savior, martyr kind of patterns. And these kind of things are very much a focus in general with North Node in Pisces between January 2025 to July 2026. And there's some key moments of this, as I said, Saturn meets the North Node, as I said, in April. Also, Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, the Piscean planet of kind of glamour and mysticism, fashion, and things like this. Neptune is conjunct North Node, 28 degrees Pisces on the 7th of February 2025. So there's some kind of almost destined kind of moments of options will appear of what we want to focus on in the new cycle ahead. North Node in Pisces was last North Node was last in Pisces between June 2006 and December 2007. And certainly in my life, I witnessed a range of things. Like there was a major kind of breakup in my family at that point. And there's dissolution patterns and people stepping away from the kind of martyr victim kind of roles there. which is very, very obvious. Now, Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011. Saturn has been in Pisces since 2023. So this has been a long period of people using Piscean kind of energies and astrological energies and exploring these areas that we've been talking about for quite a while now. And now with the North Node, we'll see the fruits of what has been done in these periods. I mean, have people kind of just fallen into hardcore religion and given their power away in that way? Have people during lockdowns, for example, become a dedicated alcoholic? Or have people perhaps been spending their time producing works of art, working on their consciousness, processing fears? What kind of situation are people in as a result of their activities, particularly over the last 3 years, but also the last 14 years, 14 years there. However, even if you haven't been doing all of these high frequency things, it's still possible to look around and see people who have been doing these things and emulate these new emerging kind of leaders. So with North Node in Pisces, ideal time to develop uh, or continue and focus more on a dedicated meditative practice, for example. It's a fantastic set of energies for focusing on artistic output. Again, music, singing, dance, fashion, photography, digital art. These are all well starred. Also focus on healing and generally stepping away from rules and trying to straitjacket ourselves into some kind of somebody else's vision of perfection, stepping away from continually trying to purify the physical body, although this is important, but this is not the focus in this particular North Node in Pisces, and focusing, as I said, on a larger consciousness, like the consciousness of the Earth, Gaia, and beyond, like the universal high frequency human collective, trying to in touch with other kind of dimensional beings such as angels and fairies, and yeah, really looking at things beyond the physical body, as great as the physical body is, but to have look at larger perspective. As I say, looking at kind of more mystical perspectives, like focusing on enlightenment, uh, being in oneness, dream work is another one, might be kind of helpful here, and constructing resonant high frequency dreams for others to enjoy be a key thing here. Perhaps making films of this nature. And as I say, it seems to me that there'll be further things making it obvious that it's time to finally release these religious belief systems, um, which are just not, you know, not really relevant, and my view perhaps haven't been relevant at any point. Pisces is structureless, so moving into a less of a kind of fixed routine might be helpful. Looking at how we can focus on mystical abilities, such as kind of moving things with consciousness, remote viewing, uh, remembering the future, mediumship, these kind of things can all be um, beneficial uses of these energies. Also, a more realistic view of healthcare, and finally, seeing more clearly the toxins for our physical bodies and how to not use them, how to not be anywhere near them. So in March, again, the two solar eclipses, the lunar eclipse in Virgo, partial solar eclipse in Aries. So this full moon on the full moon lunar eclipse on the 14th of March, opposite Saturn and Neptune. Uh, so it emphasizes a situation where Saturn and Neptune have been very closely together for quite a bit and kind of blurring the lines between reality and fantasy. So looking here where we might kind of, on the one hand, perhaps we need to have some boundaries, or perhaps where it might have been helpful to have slightly less kind of stringent and aggressive boundaries, and invites us to kind of ground the dreams that we have in a more practical action. So just trying to make sure that we're not restricting ourselves in unnecessary kind of rules, legislation, things like this. This lunar eclipse on the 14th of March relates to things begun on the new moon on the 14th of September 2023. Yeah, where I remember I went to a fantasy writers convention, so maybe I should really go on with that novel, to be honest with you. And 29th of March, the solar eclipse is a conclusion of the North Node being in Aries for 18 months. So there's a lot of ambitious moves and transformations over that period since summer 2023, where there were lots of um, entrepreneurial moves, might have felt self-directed, but with great kind of help from high frequency guides, ideally. So in this eclipse, we get, I would think we would, with it being in Aries, we would get some kind of insight and stunning illumination around our state of, say, independence or lack of it, which plans really excite us, and what we'd like to focus on when a few planets move into Aries later on in the year. But it helps us, I would say, to narrow down, or things might be narrowed down without us even actually doing anything. It being an eclipse that we kind of like can't really influence or manifest much in those times, but things tend to just happen or get cleared away or disappear or appear. People appear. So this will kind of help us to get some clarity on the new adventures, as I say, and the new manifestations in the Aries astrology of this year in particular that we wish to focus on and we really are committed to. And yeah, it can help us just to get, as I say, uh, some final decisions about around these areas. Like, for example, we may have suddenly realized through the Mars retrograde, Mars is the planet that rules Aries, that by the end of March, um, April, that really what's most important is our physical fitness and strength. And in fact, it's all great kind of being a mystic and everything, but wouldn't it be great to live as long as possible in the healthiest possible way? Therefore, we should commit ourselves to this strength and fitness routine or regime even for like months ahead, and that will like change our lives in the astrological energies we'll see ahead. Perhaps there are certain entrepreneurial adventures that we wish to um, more exclusively focus on and drop everything else that might be in conflict with that or might take away our focus from this. Now, having some clarity around the new kind of cycles that we wish to go into, Neptune moves into Aries the day after the solar eclipse. Saturn moves into Aries, as you can see, in May. But these planets are still pretty close to each other, and they're pretty much conjunct for some periods of the year. And they're starting whole new cycles, with Aries being the beginning of the whole astrological sequence of signs, first sign, and the fire starter. So Neptune in particular has a 165-year cycle. So this is a long, long cycle. We're just seeing the very much the beginnings of kind of where we're just going to into the forest, like in the kind of the section where there is no path or way, and really kind of making our own path here. So Saturn was last here in Aries from April 1996 to October 1998. So there's been quite a long cycle of Saturn uh, from Aries to Pisces, and now we're looking to start again with a whole new pattern for about 30 years. You can see how Neptune can lead to all kinds of um, uh, kind of idealistic adventures. I mean, I tend to think last time Neptune was there in the 1860s, there was a man called David Livingstone, who was a missionary in places such as Africa, and he was reporting all of the atrocities of the Arab slave trade, particularly on the East Coast, Zanzibar, and he really kind of publicized this. And he was like the first person, like the fire starter, who went to highlight all of these things. And eventually, he managed to stir up enough support in the British public that he revived the kind of abolition movement against slavery in the UK at that time. And the Royal Navy set off on its attempt to suppress that particular section of the slave trade. So this is something. This is the kind of thing that could happen. And this similar thing in the American Civil War around that time, where we're working towards the abolition of slavery in southern USA, and also visionary advances like there was the first rotary kind of printing press that rapidly expanded a circulation of newspapers, magazines, and this kind of had massive impact on people's imaginative experiences. Novelists such as Charles Dickens and these kind of Victorian era novelists there. So this is something that this can be explored dramatically from that point on. I mean, other things that might be explored, and this is just the start of this whole period where Saturn and Neptune will go back into Aries the following year in 2026, but also new forms of like entertainment, like apparently when Neptune was back there in the 1860s, there was lots of music hall comedians, what they call vaudeville, which had a long kind of impact in until the present day on kind of TV, kind of comedy, kind of entertainers. And then you think of like the fashion houses of Paris in the 1860s, where they kind of brought in whole new styles of dressmaking, how that influenced people's kind of views of glamour, and so idealized forms of like courage and bravery, like you think of legends such as Robin Hood for Neptune in Aries, supposedly robbing from the rich to pay to give money to the poor, and overall, with Aries being kind of masculine and sign and the first fire sign, it seems like it could be like kind of a new version of masculinity as a whole, being kind of imagined and brought kind of forward there rather than like the kind of savior figures, for example. Also adventures at sea with the like the first ocean liners, and the last time Neptune was in Aries in the 19th century. So you could see things like more travel into the depths of the ocean or the heights of the atmosphere, and into almost what people term space. All kinds of even mystical adventures, such as recognition of more kind of ghostly figures, and this kind of astral kind of reality being explored by many, many more people than are currently looking at this kind of thing. But you can see in the other side of the split how Neptune in Pisces would indicate for them this would be kind of energies for some kind of holy war, which is something obviously not to agree with, and some kind of utopian vision, which I'm sure the quotation goes something like it's utopia is only met across a sea of blood. But so that's something not to. In that same way, it's also worth paying attention to lower frequency dreams, which are kind of propagated, I think is a term, like like an example from the 19th century when Neptune was last in Aries is the Marxism and Darwinism. So new new kind of light-filled endeavors and um, adventures are really the thing to aim for. I mean, as I say, the medical developments, medical advances, which particularly help resonate in this Neptune field as well. So new forms of medicine, such as new forms of clearing toxins, for example, from the physical body. With the regard to new masculinity there, Neptune in Aries could see a rise, return more of a kind of a romantic uh, male energy there as well. So Saturn in Aries as well will help to make a lot of these kind of ideals and romantic adventures and idealistic adventures more practical, and look at the ones that it seems like we actually have a realistic chance of making happen in the next few decades, whereas Saturn has a 30-year cycle and Neptune 165-year cycle. So Neptune's obviously looking on a bigger kind of longer scale, kind of taking a longer view, taking the long view. So as I say, in this energies, we see new kind of high frequency leaders emerge, which will obviously will grow through decades and a long time ahead. Saturn will help Neptune take more calculated risks rather than just, like David Livingstone, just heading straight into the middle of Africa and not worrying about anything. Saturn will kind of say, let's pause, let's take a little bit more of a look at how we're planning and preparing for this, but also been quite persistent in his approach, very persistent. And yes, Saturn and Neptune, as I say, will help to form to settle, I mean, or to force to look at realistic quests to set out on, and also these kind of quests that are resonant for us, because we can only be ourselves, and all of these planets and asteroids in Aries very much emphasize that we can only be ourselves. So these are we're really talking about the foundations of the light paradigm here, and uh, this is really emphasizing the split, uh, yeah, and seeing in a very real way how deep the roots of the low light dark paradigm has been, particularly over the last 160 years or so, where it's been really in all kinds of entertainment and communication and dreams. Even though there have been, it's been, I would say, probably less dark than it was before that. But now the kind of move towards sanity obviously continues, particularly in May 26th, where Chiron conjuncts Eris, and this is a first of three conjunctions over, as you can see, a 10-month period. So there are huge disruptive healing kind of shifts needed, because we're looking at the levels of toxins and unhealthy kind of elements of environment, which really have to be reconsidered. Looking at things such as how to live in reduce Wi-Fi, like EMF clothing, canopies. Also looking at the kind of toxins in, as I say, food, and everybody knows like things like this right now, chemicals which are becoming much more noticeable. But Chiron and Eris also focuses hugely on emotional healing, and uh, to me is a symptom. To me is yeah, symptom even of, or even a sign of this ongoing um, uh, massive increases in the numbers of people awakening, and the acceleration of awakening, I should say. So this is kind of a phase that carries on until just about 2028. And the kind of low frequency side of the split is really becoming really becomes ever more noticeable in this phase, particularly 2025, 2026. And yeah, it's just really kind of it could be a brutal period of numbers of disabled and killed off people by so-called medical treatments becoming just fantastically painful. So self-care is very important, and also taking care of people who have been negatively impacted by so-called medical injections and so-called medical care can become particularly necessary and more difficult to ignore than ever. Thankfully, in the midst of all of that, Jupiter moves into the incredibly nurturing uh, sign of Cancer, and helps us to reconnect with perhaps family members, roots, uh, resonant tribes and groups of people, and reconcile with people who perhaps we might have not got on too well with, particularly while Pluto was opposite Cancer in Capricorn for like since 2008, particularly when Mars was retrograde at the start of the year. And it seems to me that the negative impact of all these so-called medical treatments um, will really help, will not help, but that's the wrong word. It won't help at all. But it can lead to people realizing the value of people, value of other people, value of connections, the value of unity, family unity, value of being around people who are on the same page. Jupiter will square Chiron and Eris uh, through the rest of the year, and as these kind of huge disruptions of healing, disruptions around life script changing kind of new endeavors that we've chosen with Neptune and Saturn in Aries, like new kind of, say, quests that we're focusing on. Uh, Jupiter in Chiron will show how um, we can share our healing methods within our own groups and families help to help people adjust. Fantastic opportunities for healing within families and tribes indicated here, and even where we might feel that we're being determinedly um, rebellious or not kind of going along with anybody in our groups, our families. Jupiter is such a positive element here, Jupiter in Cancer. There, we can really find a way to accommodate all types of people within our kind of networks. And Jupiter will not have a problem with as many individuals as possible in the family network or group network, for example. Even under this energies, you can see that the larger family of humanity uh, uniting to an extent greater than previously seen. People are just putting aside kind of issues and disagreements, and really kind of seeing that it's better to be unified than to be in pointless arguments. Jupiter in Cancer really helps to form new emotional connections. Cancer is a water sign, a cardinal water sign, so it initiates emotional kind of and connections and creates positive feelings and connect emotions. Uh, and Cancer does this generally, but like a kind of river moving towards something. But Jupiter in Cancer amplifies the power of Cancer, so it's like a kind of white water rapids, just and can just blow straight through any obstacles. There's no kind of rules that can stop Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer will just create kind of connections, even with people where it seems that it's impossible to connect. So yeah, creating kind of new positive spaces, exploring our traditions and updating traditions and creating more positive conditions and looking at history in a new and more positive way rather than the kind of self-hatred view of, say, Western history, which you sometimes see. Things can be seen in a whole new light. And Jupiter in Cancer also encourages us to follow our gut feeling, our intuition. And yeah, it's just careful not to kind of stay too much in like a comfort zone. Also very helpful for building kind of financial foundations for families. And as I say, it moves towards the end of the year. Uh, Jupiter in late Cancer trine Saturn and Neptune, who are together in late Pisces. So this is hugely positive for creating dreams, like things. Um, Neptune has been in Pisces for so long, since 2011. So kind of dreams realized that have taken like say maybe 14 years roughly they've been working on, or Jupiter with Saturn. So Saturn's been Pisces like a couple of years, 2 or 3 years by that point. So we can really see kind of concrete and lasting um, tangible signs of tangible fruits of our efforts, say mystical skills, artistic skills, feelings of enlightenment, and they will last. This is something that will um, carry on for a while with Saturn involved. The magical nature of Neptune, particularly in Pisces, and the common sense and practicality, stability of Saturn involved, and Jupiter providing luck and expansiveness. I mean, it's just a fantastic energies for manifestation and creating things that we are dreamed of. So then moving towards the final kind of air-based period of the year, Uranus moves into Gemini in July until November before returning to Taurus until next year. So Uranus in Gemini, the sign of the twins, is really a kind of impossible to kind of keep Uranus quiet, particularly in Gemini. So there's no way that anybody can uh, uh, implement restrictions on free speech. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter how many military operatives are hiding behind computers trying to tell people what to think. It's just a waste of time. They should just forget it. Also, dissonant behemoths of communication, such as the BBC, such as Rupert Murdoch's press, um, can pretty much say whatever they want, but people are not going to look for their information in the same old places anymore with Uranus and Gemini. Look around, find more independent viewpoints, cross-reference between different opinions. And another thing that would come in here, as I say, with the more independent education chosen over mainstream indoctrination, freely chosen courses, um, virtual neighborhoods such as Second Life have expanded dramatically while Jupiter has been in Gemini and will continue to do so while Jupiter's in Gemini until until June. But with Uranus then moving into Gemini, there can be some really electric kind of progress in virtual worlds, digital art, um, such as Second Life or virtual reality. And it'd be interesting, yeah, to see how this affects also um, local transport networks and how there'll be new ways of getting around over the next, like, say, 7 or 8 years. We can expect new forms of communication, even newer than smartphones or the internet, to really revolutionize the way people communicate. Even experiments in such areas as experiential telepathy and such areas as this could be interesting to see how that would be seen and accepted, however startling and shocking it may be. For example, using technology and also experiential telepathy to communicate with animals in kind of falsifiable experiments, and finding where you can actually prove that it didn't happen or it happened. It would be interesting to see how this works with, say, communication with chimpanzees, for example, or communication with other forms, such as in air sign, like um, birds, and looking at how they actually travel around and know exactly where they're going each year, even though they only do the journey like once a year. How this affects, how this is connected to the kind of the field of the planet, like the Earth, and such areas as this, all fruitful kind of avenues for research. This phase also indicates shocking changes to neighborhoods as less and less people um, live in what would like to live in the more controlled environments of cities and live in more independent kind of communities, just like small groups of neighbors and less kind of, for example, less cameras watching them and things like this. And you can see the Uranus-Neptune cycle beginning. So it's very much a start of a conversation next year about new dreams and new trailblazing kind of ways of living. And this is, as I say, the beginnings, it seems to me, of a more concrete kind of manifestation of the light power. As I say, in the neighborhood, shocking changes as the impacts of the so-called, well, deadly so-called medical practices um, become more and more noticeable. Another element for Uranus and Gemini be the impact of technology on language and written communication, and how people can use it to interpret and translate much more accurately, and get such things as uh, transcripts of spoken English or subtitles of video recordings, which become far more accurate than they ever had been before, and help to disseminate information uh, in much more languages. So such things as English kind of MP3s can suddenly be translated automatically into like say 50 languages, and information can extremely rapidly progress and help to the ongoing awakening. Continuing with the air signs, Pluto is, of course, still in Aquarius for another 18, 19 years. And really looking at the fixed air sign Aquarius and the inflexible, dogmatic kind of thought patterns of, say, academics such as the mad scientists from the COVID debacle and their backers or script writers, and the mind controlling institutions such as academia and broadcasters. And Pluto is really going to blow these things out of the water. Uh, just leave them crumbling into dust for rebuilding to an authentic um, intellectual research and accurate view of the nature of physical matter and reality over this period. But Pluto is moving um, quite slowly, so Uranus will be in touch with Pluto as they're two air signs, and this can lead to very quick dissemination of the revolutionary um, realizations or investigations of Pluto by Uranus and Gemini through social media. So dissonant aspects of technologies, which are anti-health, can be more clearly seen and communicated. And also a realization of the financial vested interests, which are dictating the pathways of such things as so-called scientific awareness and apparent academic insight. So what we're seeing here is a forensic dismantling of uh, people who appear to be wisdom keepers, but are not really. And in their place, the actual people who have been saying all along, look, don't go for this medical so-called treatment. And what on earth are these academics on about? And looking at broadcasters and kind of checking what they say will become much more visible. We see Pallas Athena, the strategist, moving into Aquarius from the 16th of February until January 2026, enabling us to more strategically dismember these ludicrous notions of that people tend to believe, such as around the climate hoax. Mercury conjunct Pluto the 29th of January, which so some key news and key information about all of these things uh, come forward, become available, and a lot of this relates to a lot of Pluto in the early stages of Aquarius relates to the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the 22nd of December 2020, which started a 20-year cycle around exploring scientific and other Aquarian things on a more realistic on a realistic level, such as some of the things that can be explored here are this science around so-called gender changing surgery and the impacts of this of these things. The entire area of eugenics and mass depopulation, and just generally all of those things we see more clearly, which will help us to change our future. At this time, powerful communities can be much more noticeable, and explorations of new ways of living in a kind of higher frequency sense can really impact the larger human collective on what we call Earth. So, particularly in terms of exploring these delusions that I mentioned in more detail. So, Pluto in Aquarius very much is about changing the future. So, it's worth looking at how we would see ourselves if we looked at ourselves from uh, far off in the future, say in 200 years' time. What kind of things would we admire about what we're doing, and what kind of things would we just drop instantly if we looked at ourselves from that vantage point? In a scientific sense, for example, the exact nature of our current understanding of what we call space, planets, and I say this as a as an amateur astrologer, could be brutally exposed, and also, and the alternative direction, the nature of microscopic molecules and even smaller uh, elements can be we can imagine that this will be looked at in much more depth and seen more clearly, looking in a sense at infinity in both directions. Physics too is a key kind of area of study where I was listening to Barbara Hann Clow, and there seem to be lots of new elements of physics to explore that are just coming into um, consciousness. And one thing that it would be nice to see over this next like 18, 20 years would be a more accurate view of our nature as humans as galactic beings, and Gaia is a galactic being as well, as you see in the Gaia contract, which I'll link to below. We see fake kind of UFOs, as well as a Pluto in Aquarius kind of element where human-controlled UFOs seen to be human-controlled and not actually aliens, as a kind of delusionary tactic. Now, all of this is very much about Uranus and Pluto in the kind of general collective awareness. But once we get between August and October, the final major section that I'm looking at, Mars and then Mercury, Sun, and Venus will all move through Libra, the other air sign, and activate what we call a grand trine in air, which is, it just means a hell of a lot of thinking, thoughts, so much communication, a kind of totally free communication, with all of these amazing ideas and new perspectives suddenly becoming available to many, many more people paying attention, and a whole kind of rebalancing going on between what we call the mainstream, which is an increasingly small number of people paying attention to that, and independent alternative viewpoints who gain more traction. So this is helpful in terms of us choosing the information that we're aware of, and being able to create more individual perspectives and lines of action and our own personal stories, in and kind of moving away, as I say, from the kind of main kind of vantage point of um, following anybody else in particular, and just trying to following a particular so-called ideal, uh, which is different for everybody. So this would lead obviously to mass disagreement with things that people do not resonate with, and looking at a perfect period between August and October for experimental outlooks, new technologies, and exploring perhaps ways of making Wi-Fi healthy, smartphones which are independent of mass corporations, for example, I would think. Home astronomers looking from their garden at the universe and helping to network with other independent astronomers, for example, and forming a more realistic view of the cosmos. Self-made kind of free energy generators, for example. These kind of things where you think of like the Industrial Revolution, with people creating engines at home and then working together to produce machines that actually could drag along carriages, such as forming trains. This kind of experimental network. Again, new ways of using sound with all this air energy indicates the new kind of high frequency musical forms, probably possibly being generally widely released at this point, actually. And all of these things will increasingly make what is termed the mainstream seem ludicrously out of date and out of kilter with everyone's day-to-day reality, to even greater extent than. As I say, all of this communication of near genius level, revolutionary and transformative ideas and technologies, devices, in general, suggests to me real beginnings of increasingly mass awakenings into the hundreds of millions, if not more than that. Kind of really just making it, just blowing away all kinds of propaganda and lies, and just being quite extraordinary how that unfolds. And this, of course, is, my interpretation of high frequency uses of these energies, but I really hope that it comes forward along those lines or something better. Now, the final thing I was going to mention really caught my eye was the September eclipses. There's a total full moon lunar eclipse, 15 degrees Pisces in September, 7th of September. This is trine Jupiter in Cancer, so it's integrating the kind of the larger perspective of Jupiter in kind of forming greater meaningful connections, leading to profound connections to say non-physical entourage members. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what kind of occur there. As it is a total full moon lunar eclipse, this indicates to me that there's been a massive release in this ongoing eclipse series from 2024 to 2027 in Pisces and Virgo. A total release on 7th September of further dissonant belief systems, the kind of ludicrous natures of various religions becoming even more noticeable, and allowing kind of light source to guide us towards next phase of our journey there. The final eclipse of the year is a partial solar eclipse, 29 Virgo. It's opposite Saturn and Neptune, late Pisces. So we're looking to perhaps see what structures are again outdated and no longer resonant with a kind of more expansive perspective. So it might feel a bit limited. So we can get a great opportunity to process um, fears around moving forward in a more organized way and moving away from kind of uh, delusions, which can be still present with Saturn and Neptune towards the end of Pisces. But also, we might, on the other hand, we also can see how Saturn and Neptune in mystical Pisces can offer us vital insights into the routes that we're taking, the steps that our work, for example, and things like Virgo, things such as writing and detox, helping us see a larger perspective in our day-to-day routines. But as I say, that's the final major section. I mean, from say November, December, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn all move back into the signs that they were in. So Saturn and Neptune move back into Pisces, Uranus moves back into Taurus. So very much kind of integration of the this fantastic sequence of new ideas and new endeavors we see from particularly from April, May until October. I shall also quickly mention some of the asteroids. So Ceres, the harvest goddess, it's very nurturing, moves into Aries from 16th, 17th of May until uh, March 2026 for a long stay, helping to helping us be more nurturing and soothe the kind of painful disruptions of Chiron and Eris as we kind of go for disruptive life script changes. I mentioned Pallas Athena there for quite a long stay in Aquarius, so getting strategic elements of genius there to help us transform our thinking. Vesta is in passionate Scorpio for most of the year until September. So this indicates that we're really willing to go through any obstacle in this period to achieve what we want to. Vesta in Scorpio just makes up its mind and finds a way. We're extremely resourceful. Um, it's somebody says it can't do it, it just gets more determined. She just gets more determined. Vesta is related to the sacred Vestal Virgins of Rome who tended the sacred fires, the eternal flame of Rome, and they're extraordinarily dedicated, particularly in Scorpio. And depth and wisdom are what matter to them, and they just see through the surface. They're very committed to an extraordinary level. Juno, the wife of Jupiter, um, spends her time in Scorpio and Sagittarius. So there again, Juno is extremely dedicated while in Scorpio to seeing things clearly. So so this indicates as to quite a few aspects through the year that people might try to create kind of false flags or set up kind of fake news, and we're just not going to take it. We're just going to investigate and see through it quite rapidly, and truthing things is not going to be is going to be done, but not going to accept being treated um, as a fool. Juno, when in Sagittarius, will demand that their views are heard and will not accept kind of being silenced. We mentioned Chiron meeting Eris. Also, here are the new moons and full moons, 2025. So it's review those as we go. And finally, we have Mercury, the retrogrades, which are all in fire and water. So that's very passionate, really, kind of steamy, with emotions. Water and fire is, it's just very, very, very enthusiastic, I should say. The fire signs. Okay, so that's that's it, really. That's the to my view of the astrology of 2025, echoes of the future. I hope this is of benefit to you. If you did actually watch all of this all the way through, thank you very much. I very much appreciate your time. I hope you get to put all this information to good use. And remember, this is just an interpretation. There are obviously so many other people looking at these things, so I'd recommend getting a wide range of viewpoints on the year ahead, whether through astrology or other means, and doing your own readings as well with tarot cards, and you're looking at wherever kind of divination method you prefer, mirror magic, runes, whatever. Always always a great idea in my view. If you did enjoy this, I hope you can tell your friends and share the video. And I'll put this, yeah, as I say, on my website, which is below, and included on Telegram and YouTube, Rumble, provided I remember how to do all that stuff. And yeah, wish you a great 2025. Very, yeah, have a nice year.